Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is an author of the best NBA book I read last year. And quite frankly, it's probably the best NBA book or book period. I mean, what else do I read? I don't read about anything else. Best book I read in a long time, Tanking to the Top. If you haven't read it yet, go out and do yourself a favor and get it. And also now I can say the author of the definitive piece on the Leon Rose Knicks era. Long live it in all its glory. Yaron Weitzman. Yaron, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, buddy. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this. Yeah, it was funny. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, man, it's been over a year. Someone's gonna drop it. Man, it's gonna be Ian. Is it gonna be Mark? Is it maybe Vork? Maybe Steph comes out. Maybe your old compadre at Bleacher Report, Howard Beck. And nope, from the top rope, from the rafters, your own comes in just like, it's Tuesday morning. What's this? And here it is. You had to know this was going to blow up, right?
I like to think my radar is pretty good in terms of when I had. Well, so we're crossing two things. I like to think my radar is pretty good for when I have something that's interesting and insightful. And you combine that with the fact that this is as buttoned up a front office as I can remember in recent memory. Like, I always compare things back to the Sixers. And I mentioned this in my piece, right? One of the things Sam Hinkie got killed for not talking to reporters. Sam Hinkie talked to reporters a lot off the record. And we've talked to him a lot on background. Leon, maybe he's doing that to some people. I don't know. I don't want to say he's not talking off the record with people. I do not get the feeling that, and it's also different now with the pandemic, right? There's less chit chat. You're not like running into people sidelines, but I do not get the feeling that he's doing much of any type of communication with any reporters. So I figured combining, I had some good insight and some good, I'll call it anecdotes or nuggets, whatever phrase, scenes, and you combine that with the button-up nature, and I thought it was kind of revealing. So I had a feeling it would do well. It's nice to see that the Post did a really good job and gave it to an audience that was really interested in reading this stuff too. So that was nice.
Who would have, Knicks fans, an interested audience about what's going on?
Exactly, right.
Shocking, right? This was, let me just first say, aside from the stuff, and we'll get into it in a bit, this was a great bit of reporting. I shouldn't say bit. This was, I mean, how can I ask how long you've been working on this for?
Trying to think how I can answer this.
If you can't answer it,
I'll say since Leon Rose came, right? Doesn't mean the specific story, right? Sure. Like I'm just kind of always reporting on NBA stuff, and especially ones, a few teams more than others, Knicks, Sixers, Nets, teams in my backyard, or if other things pop up my radar. So little by little, I would say the reporting, I guess, really dates back, let's say till, around May, June is when it started, right? As opposed to specifics on the piece, that would be, more recently in terms of when deciding, hey, let's put something out here.
So it's interesting, since when Rose got hired, I think he took the picture in the Tarrytown gym of him in like the sweater and the suit, and like all the jokes about like, oh, it's Tony Soprano, and he's gonna, and Nick, myself and other Knick fans would kind of banter about like what behind the scenes must look like, and like, threatening like, get this free agent in here, we'll make an offer he can't refuse, and this and that. And it was a joke. And you paint this picture of a front office that I'm not sure we were all that far off with. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but not really. Can I just ask, like, zoom out? You've covered the NBA as intimately as anyone for a very long time. Do you come away from this feeling like, okay, this is a good front office. This is a strange front office. This is what is your takeaway from your own reporting?
By the way, my wife left her cell phone here and has it going off. Do you want me to pause? We can keep going. I can talk over it if you don't hear it. Okay.
I don't even hear it.
Okay, perfect. We'll do this fluidly. Okay, so that's a good question, right? So the editorializing of it is interesting, right? So like my opinion, it's definitely, I like the word eclectic, right? It's an eclectic group. Ooh. And Westwood, Worldwide West, I'd say West. I feel like, he's West to everybody in the NBA world. So I'll call him West, even though I've never met the man. He's
probably not going to listen to this, so it's...
Yeah, he definitely brings a unique, which I'm sure we'll get into. He brings a uniqueness. Is that a made up word? Or a distinct personality?
No.
Okay. So there's a couple ways to look at it, right? I find the story in this reporting ends up being like a Rorschach test for Knicks fans. Like you see what you want to see, right? So I'm more of a cynic. I grew up a Knicks fan. I'm no longer a Knicks fan, not because like, as I got older, it's kind of, you start reporting more around the team. It was like, you take that hat. I took that hat off also. Unlike, you saw the sausage was made and you were into the sausage. I saw how the sausage was made and said, this is disgusting. I want no part of this. I don't blame you. Yeah. Okay. So, but I like to feel I have a good read on Knicks fans and Knicks fandom and Knicksdom and all that. And I was a cynic growing up, and I'm a cynic as a reporter. And I would say maybe my opinion, some of the processes here might not be great, right? If you're talking about processes versus results. So like in the story, we have, the Quickly example is an example of Wes doing something right? He knew something, saw something, had some inkling, whatever it would be that others did not, and was able to see. Emmanuel Quickly, like, I'm always hesitant to jump to conclusions after 6 months or 3 months, half an NBA season. Let's wait to get the scouting reports. But Quickly was clearly a really good pick at 23. No matter what happens, what he becomes, even if he becomes a backup point guard, right? That's still a good pick at 23. I also had reporting that he was pushing Nick Richards a lot. Maybe Nick Richards is good, right? But, if they reached and grabbed him early, not so good. So it's kind of like at what point are we filtering, and how are these decisions being filtered? So I'm a little more cynical on some of this in terms of the processes. The counter would be, and like the Thibodeau stuff is a great example, right? Like, and I'm also would say, maybe Thibodeau, it's a lot to take internally of him kind of constantly banging on the wall, banging down the door, saying, win, 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 give me this. Mm-hmm. The counter would be, no, this is the time, like, this is the front office heck of work with, because they're so close and there's such a deep relationship that Leon Rose can say, okay, we hear you. We're going to ignore you. You go coach the team. We're not going to give you anybody you want. Derrick Rose, 4 months later, will give him to you, and it will be fine. We'll all still get along. You'll mold the team into a great defense that's competing, and we'll be good, and everything's copacetic, and that works. And that's the optimist view. Again, I'm not so sure. So you asked me my view on it. It's funky. I don't necessarily love the processes of it. Is a separate conversation too. I also believe, and we'll probably talk about this, I think it can't be overstated how much the Julius Randle's emergence changes the whole picture and equation in terms of, like, if you start looking at what they have, and if this is legit what he is, it changes everything, where it's like, okay, we got our luck. Now we're in a good position here. So that it could end up being the answer to the question right there.
Well, I think it's Randle, and again, it's wait and see. You said it's a wait and see on Quickly. I think it's a wait and see on Randle too. Randle, to me, I'm curious your opinion. Randle, to me, feels a little bit more real, just because we've seen evidence of the skill set for years with him, and it's a matter of, like, maybe the mental part of it, maybe an effort thing, but like Quickly, to me, it's 30 games at this level. The floater is like, he's going to need to develop some counters. But between those two things, that's not a bad start for a front office to have, right?
Correct. And Quickly, they deserve credit. Randle's lucky part, that wasn't there. I mean, they might say, they brought Kenny Payne in to work with Randle. I mean, again, if so, Randle showed up in shape. Like, he had to, either Kenny Payne got him in shape in 4 days, or he was working before Kenny Payne got hired, right? Like, the timeline doesn't fit in terms of when he was hired. Yeah, to me, the Randle thing, it's just, again, so it's going to come down to the shooting, right? It's like an oversimplification. But if the shooting is real, then he's a legitimate number 2 guy, like, like number 2 star. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we have our, you're holding on the board. We have the number 2. We have a bunch of picks, and we have cap room, and we have RJ's looking better, and guys like that. And then it's something where you have something where, if Randle's not that, changes the entire equation. And so sometimes what happens, right? Sometimes it takes a little more luck, or, Scott, like, there have been plenty of people writing about how Scott Perry's group maybe hit something on Randle. They saw something, probably made other mistakes, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, we're going to get to Perry in a bit. And Wes, before we get there though, I think it'll be interesting for Knicks fans if you can, because again, you've covered the NBA for so long. And I don't think I'm speaking for myself. I don't have a great idea of what a quote unquote normal NBA front office looks like, how they operate, how they go about their business. It seems like Leon Rose's desire here was to get a bunch of people who he respects individually and what they bring to the table, and trust in his own ability to, be the adult as the kids are maybe like throwing things at the table at one another, and organize it and coalesce it into, something that's greater than the whole. Is that, well, first of all, do you think that's an accurate description? And second of all, is that something that you feel like other front offices do, or is this more an outside the box thing that he's trying to go for?
I hear you. It's tough. Okay. So there's a couple of things. First, the West dynamic, that's the major difference. Like that, there's no comparison in other front office to the West dynamic and the West Leon Rose dynamic, which you can literally you could write a book about those two and what that means to the modern NBA, right? That would take to tell that story of the Leon Rose West relationship and who works for who almost, right? And who's helped who more, and like the back and forth and stuff like that.
You're due for another book.
Yeah, no, I'm not bad, right?
I'm throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? So it's like, that's the part that is not comparable, right? Other people, people often rely on people they know. I would say the relationships here are deeper than like, I know this person, especially between the main. So Wes and Leon, again, that's well documented. Anyone listening to this is going to know that.
It's 30, how many years? Whatever. Goes back.
Going back to Philly areas, right? Like, so they basically pulled each other up. Like, you can't untangle like who helped who. Like, they've pulled each other up the ladder. Leon and Thibodeau, everyone listening to this knows. Thibodeau says he knows Wes. That was since an opening press conference that Wes has been involved for years. The Brock Aller part is
that I didn't know.
That's interesting.
You wrote that. That was fascinating.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I found it interesting because that was sort of like people on the outside and inside the NBA, around the NBA, were like, wait, what? Brock Aller's? When Leon Rose gets hired, everyone thinks his first hire is going to be this name was thrown out by Steph Bondy, that I'm using him as an example, right? If it's like Elton Brand, right? An Elton Brand type, that guy's going to come and be his GM, right? Like a guy like that. I don't know who the other example would be. A guys like that, we're like established big time GM that even casual fans have heard of. And that's going to be the guy that they bring in, and he's going to be the GM. And instead they first hire, and it wasn't the GM, but first hire, Brock Aller. Or Wes, everyone assumed to be the first hire, right? First hire is Brock Aller. And most people are like, who? Right? I didn't know who Brock Aller was. A lot of people around the NBA didn't know who Brock Aller was. So much like to even I had learned what Brock Aller looked like today, right? When I saw his picture.
First picture I've seen of him that actually.
Yeah, and I'll give you like the editor sent me, is this Brock Aller? And I'm like, honestly, I do not know. I'm seeing this. Like, this guy has been behind the scene. He was a Dan Gilbert. I mean, again, your listeners read this stuff, they know. So him and Leon Rose, and most of this reporting at first had him and Leon Rose as being some sort of relationship via Cleveland days and Leon Rose and J.R. Smith and CAA and Dan Gilbert. And I don't know exactly how it started, but Brock Aller worked for Dan Gilbert in Detroit mogul, and that's where Wes spent a lot of time. And there's some sort of deep connection there as well. So Brock Aller is part of like that family too. Brock and Thibodeau, the two, I'm sure we'll get to this, I don't believe they have that sort of deep-seated relationship. It doesn't mean they have an issue, but I don't believe those two are the same, like where everyone else is like goes back years. So in terms of that, that's a little different. Comparing to other front offices, I do think, and I wrote about this, like Leon's communication is not great, which has not been great with fans or has not been great internally. It's okay for teams like the Toronto Raptors, let's say now, right? In their situation, they'll have internal debates. Hey, should we restart or should we keep going? Like, that's these sort of philosophical debates about direction of teams. That's a very normal thing to happen. And you want different views in the room. For that to happen between certain people 4 months into all being brought in by a new president, that's a little strange, right? And I think, again, that's different. Most people come in, team president comes in, he's going to hire people. Everyone's on the same page. Hey, This is what we're doing year one. This is the goal. This is that. Doesn't mean they're going to tell that to everybody in the room, like front office staffers or scouts. Like, they could be kept in the dark. And Leon might be communicating that stuff to his core group of executives. But clearly there was some sort of disconnect. So that part's a little different. And again, the West part is just, you can't compare it. Like, in terms of the allegiances and Kentucky, his personality, the connections to Kentucky. It's his first NBA job. And he's a senior executive vice president / senior advisor, right? The slash is in his title, which I like.
I mean, whatever the title is, reading the piece, it sure seems to me that he's the de facto GM. And again, we'll get to Perry in a second, but, or maybe co-GM with Aller? Like, what is your impression of like who's making the decision? Rose is making the decisions clearly, but like in terms of the basketball,
like, does Ty go to West? Maybe, right? So I'm gonna speculate. I don't know, right? I don't know. But I do know that you will be hard-pressed to find two people more connected and close in the entire NBA ecosystem than Leon Rose and Wes, right? And that is unique. Again, that's like a part where, I don't know, like John Hammond and Jeff Weltman, who worked like a bunch of teams and keep switching jobs, right? But I don't know what that is, but that's like where one takes GM, one takes president, and they swap. It's like that part is unique, and Wes's relationships throughout the league and the connections, and where you have a guy coming into a new job, but he also feels like he runs the place. And I'm not saying that because like he runs the NBA, he doesn't actually, but he's just this. The word unique is overused. He is unique, a unique character. Like he is literally unique, one of a kind. There's no comparison. So that would be the difference in terms of like what's the difference. And I'll add this. He's not a scout and he's not a G. Like it's not even his background is, I don't know what, like I described him as like
relationships,
right?
He's a relationship builder.
Yeah. So like here, I'll use a Knicks again. Like Alex Klein was, what was he doing? Was he doing reporting? Like there are other people, sometimes these like draft insiders who become like at least there's some overlap. West, that wasn't it. It wasn't, he was connecting people.
And I want people to read the piece because it's really good. So I don't want us to go over everything, but man, you have a couple anecdotes here about Wes. I'm trying to think which is the song, it was Empire State of Mind.
Yeah, Empire State of Mind.
I read that. I read the paragraph. Wait, what? And then I read it again. I'm like, what's going on here? Do you mind sharing?
I think people. Yeah. So there was one meeting. So Wes is on all these Zoom calls, scouting Zoom calls, and I'm trying to remember the exact. But basically, one meeting he played Empire State of Mind. I don't have all the background in terms of like the pure A to B to C that led to it, but the idea being, this is what I played. This is what was played. I believe he was saying that he was there for Kevin Knox's private workout for the Knicks.
Yeah.
This was the idea of playing, and I'm assuming the connection was some sort of, or more than assuming, like the idea being, he'll bounce back, some kind of like, I know Kevin, he'll bounce back, whatever.
Gotcha.
And played Empire State of Mind, and the group listened to Empire State of Mind over Zoom for, I believe,
that's a great song. maybe I should put it on right now. It'll inspire us. That's what is it? That's what dreams are made. Yeah. Okay. It's been a while since I've actually heard the song. So yeah, like you said, the West dynamic is really interesting, and to kind of look ahead a little bit, you again, I don't think you actually came out and say this, but my impression from this is that not that this is going to be coming to a head, but like, so you mentioned Randall, like they're better than anybody thought they were. Certainly better than I thought they would be this season. They're better than any reasonable thinker thought. We've long been told that Rose was never coming here for a long rebuild. At some point, there's going to be, I think, a moment where these guys have a big decision to make. Whether
fork in the road, right? A fork in the road moment.
Yeah, like again, I'm asking you to speculate. I want to put it out there. Asking you to speculate.
Yeah.
How do you think that would play out after having reported on this front office?
I don't think Leon Rose is Sam Hinkie the process. Got like 5 years, right? I don't think that. Listen, everyone around the league has the same speculation that fans will guess. Oh, Leon Rose, CAA, and then he's going to wait for Booker or Mitchell and these are like, fifth removed, whatever. But they're all signed up, right? So like, I guess, I always hear that. I find that funny because like that would have to wait, 4 years for all these guys. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I think only Towns is 3 after this year is 3 years out. But even
right, Towns is only and he's the only one you could see asking for a trade. The other two, you never know. NBA is weird, and like it's more like the NFL now where things change, and every 2 years, the whole thing turns over.
The Suns are the second best team in the West.
But yeah, it seems like I think we'd both be pretty surprised if Devin Booker is not a Sun and Donovan Mitchell is not a Jazz in 2024, like whatever year that is. Like that would be surprising. Towns, I guess, is the one where you just like, okay, this could maybe blow up at some point. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't have a good answer. I don't think this is a tanking group. I really don't. I never got the impression that this was a tanking group even in the offseason when like they're doing these 1 year deals, right? I just never thought that was what they wanted to do.
No,
Maybe I'm wrong.
and the Hayward stuff also, right? And you reported, and the other name that you reported that was interesting. I hope you don't mind my daughter sitting in for our conversation. The other name that I found interesting was Bogdanovich, who a lot of Knicks fans wanted, and Marcus Morris as another guy that like man, I enjoyed the Marcus Morris experience for the half a season I had it. That was enough. But it sounds like there was really a push to do this like as a win-now thing.
I mean, Thibodeau for sure. Thibodeau had guys like he had a list of people that he wanted to go after, right? And that was one of them. I don't know if there was the front office. It does. Listen, maybe at some point they almost thought of it. Like you don't have to. I don't need to be someone to tell a Knicks fan. They didn't listen to any of it, right? They went the complete other extreme. They got just all these 1 year deal dudes who are not particularly sought after, right? So clearly. That was the opinion then. Was it about the market? Was it? I don't know the why, right? I don't. Yeah. I can't. I don't know. I can guess. It's also clear that like I think it'd be informed, reasonable guess to say maybe the answer is this, right? As I'm putting this together, like relationships matter. So it also depends who, right? If the guy comes available is a Wes/Leon Rose connect somehow. Mm-hmm. They'll pounce, right? I don't know that, but I think it's fair to assume that seems to be the direction they are going.
Well, we're going to find out this summer, or maybe before the summer, because trade deadline's coming up in, what is it? March. Oh my goodness. It's about two weeks from Thursday. A couple more and then I'm going to get you out of here. I'm already keeping longer than I said. Okay. I've been dancing around it. Scott Perry's name was mentioned once in this piece. In a passing reference, basically, to how dysfunctional. There was, I don't know, disparate minds in the last front office and the groups that Perry brought in versus Mills people. It sure does not sound like he has the loudest voice in the room right now.
I don't think he does. Yeah, and I saw a lot of people. I check my mentions. I'm not gonna pretend I don't. I saw that was a common thing. I don't want to say definitely he doesn't, right? I can tell you like the stuff like his name did not come up in those specific things I was reporting. My read on it is that, I don't think it's so surprising. Like he's a GM. He knows how to be a GM. He understands the job. He can be helpful for a front office where, again, we're mentioning these are new people, especially Wes and Leon have never been in front offices before. There's value there. I believe he's certainly, I'm saying, informed, I'll say speculation, I believe with some certainty that like he's in the room, like when there's the room and then the room and he's in like the second room, right? Like
there's the big room and then there's the little.
Yeah. Like him and Aller and Wes and Leon and, Walt Perrin. He's in the room, right? Like he's involved. But no, I don't think like if he's banging on a table saying, I want this prospect, I don't think his opinion's not going to be ignored, but like, I don't think that would matter more than the other guys. And I don't like, when Knicks fans be surprised about that? Everyone else was brought in by Leon Rose, right? These are all the people. I'm like, these are all other people brought in. Doesn't mean Scott Perry's not doing anything or is not playing any role, right? But no, I don't. He definitely, I would say, I'm comfortable saying he doesn't have the loudest voice in the room there.
Last one, and again, I love asking people who do this for a living to speculate because it gets them into trouble. So I'm going to ask. Knicks fans, and again, I speak for myself, and I think I speak for other people, where it's like. So many years where for putting aside the product on the floor is evidence of what I'm about to say. But even putting that aside, it's just there's no confidence that the people behind the scenes know what the F they're doing. And that there's real adults in the room. And I think over the last year, there has been a feeling that has built up that non-traditional or otherwise, there are people that are making decisions that have the right to make those decisions. And I think the piece today, I don't want to say that that has been called into question, but it is definitely, it sheds a new light on it. Similar, I guess, to what we started with, but a little bit different. Do you still think that do you think it's okay for Knicks fans to look at what is going on here and be like, there is a chance that this thing will continue to go in the right direction based on the leadership that they have? For sure.
And I put like Leon Rose, He's incredibly respected around the league, surprisingly so. And like I say this, I did a piece last year for a website I won't name, but after he was hired, and I remember texting all these guys after he was hired and like talking to all these different people. And what I had met Leon Rose a few times. He was Joel Embiid's agent, so writing a book about the Sixers. I had some run-ins with him, not run-ins. Just
is he a nice guy?
Yeah, I found him. Yeah, I found him to be a nice guy. Okay. He's very limited interactions. He's very laid back, or he's got a poker face, I guess. He's not revealing much, but I've had good interactions with him, fair interactions with the Embiid stuff, which some of it was more complicated. It was kind of complicated. But he's incredibly respected. Like, people around the league, like from, I remember, like, analytically inclined assistant GMs to lifetime scouts who hate everybody and are really grumpy, saying, like, I might be like, there's one specific I'm thinking about, but like, no, he's really smart, really good. Like, that's a really good hire. He's really strategic and smart. And it's like, so he is incredibly respected, which is, I'm not going to say new. That's too harsh, new. But just he's a different kind of figure than the Knicks have had at the head. Scott Perry was that a little bit. People like him. I don't know if he was as not respected, but just the reputation was different.
Gravitas,
yeah, exactly.
Is the word that
right?
comes from
yeah, because people don't have a bad word to say about Scott Perry for the most part. People like him, but it's a different style, different level of stature. He's not on that. It's a different level of stature than Leon Rose was. It's almost like, Phil Jackson was on a level of stature, but people didn't like him, right?
But he pissed everybody off.
Yeah, exactly. And people thought he was, but yeah. So it's an interesting. So the Knicks have not had a guy. It's almost like the Donnie Walsh comparison is probably best in terms of the perch he lives on in the NBA universe. Obviously, very different backgrounds, different type of people. But in terms of just people respect him, they know him, they like him, they think he's smart. That obviously means he's doing a different job. I think. Yeah, there's no reason to think like it can't work, especially like the cupboard's not bare. It's not. And again, I'm repeating, the Randall thing changes the entire equation. It really, really does. And I don't think that can be underestimated. So if you're telling me, I'll phrase like this super connected, smart GM who has all types of relationships, or person, I should say, is becoming a team president, and he's taking over a team with a lot of draft picks, a lot of first round picks, a lot of cap room, and a bona fide number 2. You say, okay, why can't he do that, right? In a big market where guys want to come, like they can make a difference. It doesn't mean this all can't be torpedoed, because some of the strange internal dynamics or some of the processes could torpedo the whole thing. But, again, that's, I go back to Rorschach. It really is like, and I kind of wrote the piece, like, go either way. I don't really know. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure. It'll be interesting, but like, I really truly believe it could go either way.
Yeah, I've purposely kind of stayed off Twitter today because I knew as soon as it dropped, I'm like, oh my God, Knicks fans are going to be on their therapist couch today, rationalizing.
Can I add one thing? I got to talk to some fans. The idea that I saw a lot of people like talking about like Thibodeau wanted to trade Randall, and I had a note in there about like he wasn't. I forget how we phrased it. Like, it wasn't. So
the RJ Mitch. That was the pearl clutching thing. I think for a lot of fans. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple things. One. This is before, and it's clear. So this was before when Thibodeau came in before, and I'll be a good reporter. Through the Knicks, Thibodeau denied saying any of this. Okay, fine, done.
Thank you for that.
But like, if I told you Tom Thibodeau thought Julius Randle wasn't good, and I'm saying wasn't good, that wasn't even the language, but whatever. If I told you he wasn't the biggest fan of Julius Randle before this season, based on last year, like, would you find that surprising?
Well, if
Randle
he has eyes
last year. Yeah, like that's right. The idea that people find that surprising. Randall was horrendous last year,
and Barrett too. And a lot of fans killed me because I came into this year being like, look, I'm still hopeful for the kid. He was bad last year. Just call it like it is. He wasn't a good, so I don't, to me, that wasn't a big debate, but I understand.
Yeah, I find that's the idea that's controversial. Like, so then he got around Randall and he saw he was in shape and playing better. And so he had a change of opinion, but the idea that he wasn't a big fan of Randall coming in after last year, no shit, right? He had eyes, like you said, watched games last year. Maybe you saw Julius Randle do a spin move once and said, I'm out. And then like RJ Barrett and Mitchell, if I told you, I'm making up this trade, I'm making it up. No one said, if I told you before the year, hey, Thibodeau says, I want to trade RJ Barrett to the Raptors for Kyle Lowry. You would, and he wants to do that. Like, that would surprise you. That's the most Tom Thibodeau trade ever. Like, this is just, the idea. I would tell fans, like, that's before the year. That's Thibodeau. And again, being the optimist. Okay. And they said no. And then Thibodeau's clearly loves Randall, and he clearly loves Barrett based on how many minutes he's playing them. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Not you, but people. Yeah, no,
it's because again, this is and to borrow phrase from Howard Beck. It's Knicks fan PTSD. I have it. Everybody who's been around for a while has it. And there's the rationalization. It's like, okay, this and that, and you go back and forth. But look, this is the existence of being a Knicks fan, and it's good to know that the more things change, the more they stay the same. But we, of course, hope for the best. You have been beyond generous with your time. Yaron, could you kindly just do one last thing for me and remind the folks at home where they could find you and all your stuff?
Sure. You can check out Twitter. We're freelancing these days, so check out my stuff on Twitter. You can buy the book on Amazon or Independent Bookshop is a good independent bookstore or independent website to independent bookstores to send it there. We have a podcast, Weitzman Can't Jump. We talk about Knicks sometimes, stuff like that. I think you guys will enjoy. I think that pretty much covers it. If you haven't read the story yet, check it out at the New York Post.
We're dropping this, recording this Tuesday night, dropping it on Wednesday morning. There's a link to it in the newsletter for anybody who gets the newsletter. I retweeted it today. It's you have to, like, don't think that because you listen to this, you got the full, like, you have to sit down and read this thing. It's so good. It reads like a story, and it's great reporting.